Hi everyone, how are you doing today? I hope you're enjoying your Lord's Day. This is Pastor Lynn, and wanted to share with you a little bit about two powerful forces that are at work in our society that are pulling our society apart and could pull the church apart if we let them. And the two forces that I'm talking about that are dividing our society are the coronavirus pandemic and especially the government's response to it. So, especially the lockdown orders. That's the first thing. And the second thing is politics, and especially presidential politics. So, are you for Trump? Are you for Biden or whatever? And I think you'll agree that there are passions inflamed on both sides of both of these issues in our society, and our society is very divided right now. And wanted to read to you a little bit from Romans chapter 14 to see how God would have us as believers in the church respond to such things. So the coronavirus is not mentioned here in Romans 14, and politics is not mentioned, but I think that you'll see what I mean, and that you'll recognize that what Paul says here in Romans chapter 14 is very appropriate and very applicable here. So here's what Paul said. As for the one who is weak in faith, welcome him, but not to quarrel over opinions. One person believes he may eat anything, while the weak person eats only vegetables. Let not the one who eats despise the one who abstains, and let not the one who abstains pass judgment on the one who eats, for God has welcomed him. So let's just stop there for a minute. So there in the church in Rome, there was division over diet, over what we may eat or what we may not eat. And one group only ate vegetables and another group ate meat. And maybe this was affected by dietary regulations from the Old Testament. Maybe it was affected by the reality that there was meat being sold in the market that was sacrificed to idols. Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians. Maybe that's what Paul is talking about here in Romans chapter 14. But the point is that whatever is dividing a society should not divide the church. And Paul is very emphatic here that we should welcome one another in Christ, not to quarrel over opinions. So now I'll personalize it. We should welcome one another in Christ in the church, and not to quarrel over political opinions or over opinions about what's right and wrong about what the governor is doing or what the president is doing regarding the coronavirus. And here's what could happen. Paul says, let not the one who eats despise the one who abstains, and let not the one who abstains pass judgment on the one who eats, for God has welcomed him. We can despise people who think differently about us regarding politics or regarding the coronavirus, and we shouldn't do that. We should welcome one another, even as God has welcomed that other person. And that's quite a thing. If God has welcomed someone into his family because of their faith in Jesus Christ, then who are we to not welcome them into our lives, into our close circle of fellowship, because they have a different political opinion than us, or a different opinion about the coronavirus? And Paul goes on to say, who are you to pass judgment on the servant of another? And we do pass judgment on other people because they have different opinions on these matters than we do. But then Paul says, it is before his own master that he stands or falls, and he will be upheld, for the Lord is able to make him stand. And then skipping down to verse 10 in Romans 14, why do you pass judgment on your brother? Or you, why do you despise your brother? For we will all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. And then in verses 13 down to the end, he talks about not passing judgment, but also not putting a stumbling block or hindrance in the way of a brother. So, for example, if we know that a brother or sister is really stumbled by left-wing politics, then let's not try to talk them into our brand of politics. Or conversely, if we know that our brother or sister is stumbled by the mannerisms of President Trump, then we shouldn't try to talk them into being a Trump supporter. Or if we know that someone is really anxious and worried about the coronavirus, then we shouldn't try to talk them into not seeing the coronavirus pandemic that way. And what I think is we should try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. Maybe there's something that really upsets them about Trump or about the left wing or about the coronavirus. Maybe there is an underlying health concern that they have about themselves or a loved one, and they really do need to be fastidious in the way that they observe social distancing. Or maybe a person is suffering financially because of this economic lockdown that we're all enduring. So we should all give one another the benefit of the doubt in these secondary matters. We should all try to understand the issue from our brother or sister's point of view and not just our own. And by all means, let's not judge one another. Let's not abstain let's not judge one another. Let's not despise one another. That's the word. Let's not despise one another over these secondary matters, and instead let's welcome one another the way God welcomes us. The Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. Bye-bye.